All right, presented by Litify. I'm Bill Biggs, and this is Transforming the Culture of Law. Hey, so pumped to be with you guys, and thank you to tuning in to our very first episode of Transforming the Culture of Law. Right out of the gate, we want you to know a few things. Hey, we are radically committed on this podcast to helping you law firm leaders. By the way, this podcast is by law firm leaders for law firm leaders. It's for you. We're radically committed to three things. Number one, we're going to elevate your leadership ability every chance we get. We're going to help you create a culture in your firm that changes lives for the better. And ultimately, we want you, law firm leaders, to be much more profitable and much more successful. That's what we're committed to. And so, hey, many of you know that I have two mantras for leadership: love your people, demand high performance, and every problem is a leadership problem. We're going to dive into both of those topics on a routine basis with our world-class VIP guest list. I mean, we're talking about kicking off this series with people like Sam Pond, John Morgan, Rick Harris, Ali Awad, Ken Hardison, Tim Mackey, Brian Lebovic, Seth Bader, and Louise Scott, and maybe even a guest appearance by the man himself, Mark Lanier, and my good friend, Larry Fitzgerald, future NFL Hall of Famer, part owner of the Phoenix Suns, and one of the strongest emerging former athlete turned business leaders in America right now. However, for our first guest, we have the man himself, the incomparable, they call him the Prince, TD Terry Dohrmann. Thanks for being here, Terry Dohrmann, and thanks for supporting Transforming the Culture of Law.
Bill, thanks so much. I'm in some heady company with those other attendees, so I'm very pleased to be here, and thank you. And thank you for the partnership on this project. We agree at Litify that kind of this discussion is an important one to bring out to the firms and bring to the masses. So thank you for that.
Well, man, thank you. And Terry, I want to tell you, I've been a fan of Litify from when I came to New York several years ago, came to the Google headquarters, met with you guys. I think it was a LitiQuest, and saw what you were doing. I was skeptical, to be honest. I had questions just like everybody else, right? But over that time and meeting you guys, and then with my experience with Litify, I'm just so impressed that you guys are not only interested in tech and in building a big business, but you also care about culture. And you're putting these two ideas together probably as good or better than anybody I've ever seen. How did that come about? Where did you see this merging, this synergism of culture and law and tech together?
Yeah, they really must be hand in hand. And in fact, Bill, you were a good part of the reason where this whole idea kind of germinated. At the LitiQuest last year in New York, you had done your presentation on culture, increasing ROI, and how firms can change in a positive way like that. And the response to it from our clientele and our prospects was enormous. They really looked at it as a thing that makes total sense. And I don't think I'm shocking anybody by saying that from a technology perspective, legal has been behind the eight ball, but it has to go hand in hand with sort of a cultural change or a cultural adoption as well. I often use sort of gym membership analysis, meaning you have to show up. You actually have to, I could have the best equipment and the best trainers in the world, but you have to kind of come and be committed to doing it. So technology without that commitment and that sort of cultural shift is often very ineffective. And that's, legal's been a little bit guilty of doing that. So, kind of spurred on by you and some of our other customers who are raising this idea around culture, it makes perfect sense for us to have both of those approaches in the way that we go to market.
And it does make so much sense. And I appreciate those kind words. I told you guys, I'm a one-trick pony, and you just happened to pick the right trick on that day, and it kind of worked out. But at the end of the day, it was your idea. It was Litify's idea. I think it's partly because it's who you guys are. You have a great culture at Litify. You got so many incredible team members there, and they're just working their tails off to help firms and help clients. At the end of the day, clients of these firms have better outcomes. But you just can't go wrong when you are wildly, radically committed to improving outcomes for clients, creating firms where people have a sense of mission and purpose where they work. That's powerful stuff. That's the stuff that I love. And then ultimately making firms more profitable. That's you just can't go wrong. It's the right stuff.
Yeah, you're right on. I mean, it's the perfect sort of marriage between these things. And we very early on, our mission statement was to revolutionize the way that legal services are delivered, and really to kind of democratize technology in legal, because so many other areas, so many other industries are leveraging the best technology, that creating best practices and standardization in their world to really accelerate the entire industry. And legal really hadn't had that. So, it was a pretty ambitious goal of ours, but that was really the genesis of it was, can we do this? And can we leverage the best technology? And we're built on Salesforce, which I could talk about all day long. I'm a Salesforce fanboy. I came from there prior to founding Litify. But take that amazing technology, amazing platform, combine it with the expertise that we're talking about, combine it with sort of best practices. And, inevitably what's going to happen is that the industry is going to lift, particularly when you get progressive thinkers out there, like yourself, like, other customers are certainly our early customers were very progressive in the way that they were thinking about their business and how they could accelerate. It perfectly aligned with our approach. We talk about it a lot, about automation and standardization and that kind of thing. And that scares some people because you have to have the ability to still be flexible enough for the nuance of law, because it is not, everything cannot be put into a box. So for us, we're always thinking about what are the items that really can be sort of standardized and automated, while giving folks the ability to be good lawyers and deliver a good, end line product for their clients. So I think this podcast, Bill, frankly, is the perfect place to have those types of discussions, to even sort of as almost from a sandbox perspective. Let's kick around some ideas and see what we come up with, and then share those with the rest of the community. And that tide should lift all boats.
I absolutely agree. I don't think it's a coincidence, Terry, that over the last decade that I've been involved in law firm leadership, I've seen two things in the legal industry that have really begun to take off. Number one, and in no order, just these two things: tech, right? You guys are a huge part of that, but law firms realizing the need for data, for analytics, for being able to see visibility into their data, make better decisions faster, right? That has been critical. And you've seen that harnessed, and law firms are growing as fast or faster than they ever have, along with this movement of culture, right? Of law firms and law firm owners ultimately saying, hey, yes, I want to make profits, but I care about my people. I care about my clients. I really believe in my client. I really believe in my team. And I want all of this to work together. When you do that, when you combine people and performance and profits, boy, that is a powerful, powerful mix. And I think that culture and the emergence of tech together, I don't think it's an accident that law firms are growing. The right firms, the firms that are making the right decisions right now, are growing faster than we've ever seen them grow. And that's even after COVID, coming out of COVID, and firms are still tearing it up, especially those firms that are combining a desire for tech and data and a desire to have world-class culture. They're really, really doing it right. So, elite level leadership is not easy. Somebody might be born with the skills of a leader, but they're not a born leader. There's a lot of learning that has to go into that. But that's the good news, that it can be learned. Leadership can be learned. And that's what this podcast is going to be all about. It's going to be bringing in some of the best leaders in the industry and picking their brains and hearing what they've learned, where they failed, where they succeeded, what advice they would give. I mean, who doesn't want to hear about what a guy like Sam Pond or Rick Harris or Brian Lebovic or John Morgan would say about, hey, I wish I would have done this better 20 years ago, right? If we can learn from other people, our leadership just radically increases exponentially without us, as Tim Mackey says, without us having to take the bloody nose. We benefit from somebody else's bloody nose, which is powerful stuff. So you have also made a transition as a leader, Terry. You've been a sales guy, you were a Salesforce guy, and now you've transitioned into kind of leading this whole sales movement within Litify. So talk about that that transition for you into a deep leadership role and what that's meant for you, what you've learned, et cetera.
Yeah. It's been a very interesting transition, and even leading sales teams prior to being at Litify, now being a founder here and really starting this business from scratch has taught me so much about executive leadership and sales leadership, and what we need to really prioritize. The first thing I would say, Bill, is really abandoning your ego. I know certainly as a salesperson, you're driven a lot by ego. For me, it was really the idea of being mission oriented and that being the real specific focus versus my own personal gain, which can happen oftentimes with, an individual contributor role. So really leaving your ego at the door and understanding what that mission is. I think like an owner now. I primarily just try to think like an owner in that role, because it's not just about that one sale you're working on. It's really an obligation to the business. It's an obligation to our stakeholders, our investors, and what's going to ultimately lift our business higher. I also think like a marketer now versus, as an individual contributor, what is this? It's not just about this sale. It's about more broadly. What does our go-to-market look like? What are the trends saying to us? How are our customers reacting? So you have to think broadly. I always say you got to pull the lens back and think about it like that. I mentioned prioritization. You have to really be able to prioritize and not get kind of lost in the sauce. And the last thing I would say is really a level of, I call it the Mother Mary sort of complex, where, certainly in sales, particularly, something that's really performance based, you can't really try to save everybody. You have to really kind of balance the empathy and working with people and making sure they have the right types of trainings and tools and support, with maybe a brutal honesty, where you're actually doing someone a favor by saying this is not the right place for you, or this is really not the right job for you. And I've just learned over time that level of sort of honesty, radical honesty, I think is what you call it, is
candor.
Radical candor.
Yeah.
Exactly. Radical candor is something that, and it's not easy oftentimes to really have that, but I've found over time that it's way better to be that way versus not.
Totally agree, man. And I mean, we said it earlier today. It is this balance of loving your team, but also demanding high performance. And I always say to firms I'm working with, what you really have to do before you love people and demand high performance is you got to choose the right people so you can really love them and demand high performance, right? Because if it's not the right fit, doing one of the other things, usually you run into a lot of roadblocks. So you're right on. Not too many Mother Mary feelings out there, right? So Terry, you guys in Litify, you've grown now, and I won't even talk about what your value is. I'll let you talk about that if you want to, but I've been so impressed. I was telling a buddy, I predicted that Litify was going to hit this threshold this year based upon what I was seeing, and I think you guys are already there, which is fantastic. You've seen so many firms. You're working with over 300 firms across America, and I think it's going beyond America now, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that the numbers being added to every day. What are the things that you notice in these firms that you work with in terms of their business model, their approach, and their culture?
Yeah, good question. And to brag for a second, in 6 years, we've gone from 0 clients to over 300. Like you mentioned, we have over 200 members of our staff now. And our growth has really been quite remarkable. And the one sort of semi-arrogant thing I say when people ask about that, like, oh, did you expect this to happen? And in a way, yeah, I kind of did. And it's not, maybe that's a confidence versus an arrogance, but it's just everything we're talking about, and the absolute need for the world of law to make these changes and accelerate like this is just driving a lot of it. But yeah, thank you for that, Bill. We've been very successful, and the market has really responded well to us. But common thread between those clients, there's a few things that really stand out for me. One is that because by our very nature, what we're doing, there's no blueprint for it. We're paving new ground, and we're paving new ground with our clients. So all of our clients have some level of a pioneering spirit, if you will, to what they're doing. They want to get better. They're okay being sort of out in the forefront of technology and change and process development and things like that. So they're okay. They're comfortable doing that. We're a premium product. We're not the cheapest product. So people who are Litify clients, there's a stated desire and the action behind it to invest. Investing obviously in their technology, but also investing in their people, training their people, creating this culture that we're talking about. They're really investing in their future. We go into clients, and you can kind of tell that this is just a group of owners who are just going to ride this wave to the beach and sell this firm. Not a great fit for us, because we have to have that level of investment. The other thing that is common amongst really all of our clients that I've certainly been involved with is a real sense of urgency. There is this, either it's urgency because the competitive component, they have other firms that are kind of trying to eat their lunch, or just their urgency in delivering a great result for their clients. Urgency in building their business to be bigger, whatever that kind of kernel of urgency is, it's there, and you feel it, and they want to move fast and they want to do great things. Culture, I'll talk about that for a minute. The culture certainly is one where, we go in there and we try to explain to them that this is a product that's going to help everybody in the business. It's not just a top-down product. So the cultures of these firms is one very much where they understand that every single person in that firm, their work matters. It actually matters to them and what they do. Then also by extension, the team, whatever department or team that person is part of, that work matters as well. And the ability to kind of judge and recognize and sort of measure that performance is important. There's a transparency there in that culture where they literally lift each other up and collaborate like that. And then the last thing is really that their ideas matter. And what I mean by that is if they have a great idea about how they can improve a process, or they can maybe enter a new practice area, or however novel their idea is, in the past, the technology has been a limiting factor in that. And one of the things Litify brings to the table is you can turn that idea into an actual part of your platform, within hours or minutes in some cases. And it's not some type of ethereal IT project that will never happen. So our customers definitely have that sense of, again, the person that's doing the work, that matters, the team's work matters, and their ideas also matter. And they promote that. And they definitely put that in the forefront in their investment in their staff and things like that. So yeah, those are the threads I see, Bill.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I would say, just as an outside observer, well, in some ways that gets in on the inside with a lot of firms and in the consulting work that I've done, it's true. A lot of the firms that I see that are most culturally progressive are also the ones that are looking for the best technology. When I visit a firm and I'm working, and they say, "Hey, we're looking for a COO, or we need help, and we want you to build our culture and design it and blueprint it out," they most often they're thinking about Litify, or they're already on Litify, because they're looking for every advantage in the marketplace, and they want to be progressive. They want to be best, right? They want to be the best at what they do, and so best practices are important to them. So I agree, man. Those threads are legit. One thing that you and I both have noticed, me being on the side of being with a firm when we converted over to Litify, you being a part of Litify, is that all of these firms that are doing this, they're going through a major change, right? And change is hard. Sometimes it's exciting. It depends on how people are wired as to how they experience change. But I'm sure that change management is a big part of what you do, and kind of how you prepare firms if they're looking to make that conversion over to Litify. So not just with Litify, but let's talk about what is, how does change management fit into this equation from your end?
It fits in a big way. It really is. And the first thing that we tell any of our clients is that this, change is hard. You have to accept that there is going to be a process here. And there's nobody, if any vendor tells you that they have, magic pixie dust that they can sprinkle over your firm or your technology and make these changes, they're 100% full of it. Because, you have to kind of really lean into this and understand that there's going to be a process here, and not everything is going to go swimmingly. It's just a reality, certainly with a transition in software. So there is that level of acceptance. Now, what there also is, is the ability to minimize that. And the way that, that we kind of go out and talk about this is that it has to be sort of a top-down commitment. So certainly senior management, owners, partners need to, say that this is the direction we're going and really hold that line. But it also needs to be bottom up. And what I mean by that is that the individual has to understand that this is going to help me. This is going to help the way that I do my work. This is going to help me gain efficiencies. This is going to help me deliver a better client experience for our clients. So those are the sort of carrots, the carrot and stick approach. But
Yeah.
it has to be both of those things, because if it just really one or the other, there's a real danger that either the project goes on too long, or you have a failed project. Thankfully, we haven't had very many of those. But everybody up and down the chain, so to speak, has to really see that ROI. And there also needs to be a level of transparency and really firm sort of transparency and communication, not just amongst the firm internally, but with us as well. And really having that direct line of communication, being, again, brutally honest with each other where things are at, being sort of communicative, being quick, trying to come to the agreement on sort of the direction, because there's ultimately going to be times we need to pick, A, B, or C. And again, the more sort of interaction that there is around that and understanding what each other's doing, the way better off everybody is.
And again, I know this first episode we're talking a lot about Litify because we're talking with Terry Dohrmann, and Litify has been gracious to sponsor this and to come up with this idea and support this. But these things that we're talking about that you just said, they are so true apart from even Litify, right? It's change management has a lot to do with preparation and with communication, right? Those two things. And that's really what you're talking about. And how many times have I seen in a firm where the leaders are wanting to run in a certain direction, but they haven't quite prepared or talked to communicated in the way that the team wishes they had, right? And so there's a little bit of disconnect between leadership and team. And it's not really that there's a disconnection in where they want to go and desire. It's just that the preparation and the communication hasn't been there. Firms, we all as leaders struggle with that because we get an idea and we want to run, but we've got this, it used to be just us and three other people. And now we got 150 or 200 or 250 people. And we've got to learn how to prep our teams and communicate with them well in order to be successful down the road, wherever it is that we want to run to. It's the same way with Litify, right? That you're going to make that change. You got to prepare your team and you got to communicate. And when you do, you find that the road gets a lot smoother. And the time that you took to go ahead and prepare them actually saves you time moving forward because you don't run into the same bumps that you might normally do. Truth? Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. 100%. An ounce of prevention, a pound of cure kind of thing.
You got it.
It's
That's it.
absolutely true in this scenario for sure.
Well, Terry, man, you have been absolute gold today. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. Thank you guys for your ideas, for your belief in culture, for what you're doing for firms and clients and teams across America and beyond. Before I let you go, I do have two more really important questions. You got time?
I do.
All right. First question, your best spring break experience ever, like some spring break experience that just blew all the others out of the water.
Wow, that's a great question, Bill. I kind of grew up a little more blue collar, so spring breaks for me often meant that I was going back to work for a week or so to make some money. But and maybe that part of that was in transparency. When I was 17, I went to Daytona, Florida for spring break, and I got busted for drinking. What was I got busted for drinking beer. Yeah, very exactly. And I got caught drinking a beer, and I could not be released on my own reconnaissance. So my sister had to wire me a ticket and fly me home, and I got brought to the airport in cuffs for drinking a beer at 17. So,
oh my gosh,
that's not the best experience.
I would have never thought that Terry Dohrmann, the Prince, would have ever done anything like that, except for the fact that when I talked to your sister Laura yesterday, she happened to tell me the exact same story, and so I feel like you were given some a little heads up about this question coming your way.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's well done.
The story is lore. It's lore in the Dohrmann family. So yeah.
She said, "Oh yeah, the time that he got taken in cuffs to the airplane, and I had to bail him out of jail with my Amex." I said, "Oh, that story is going on the podcast."
That's awesome. True story.
Right. Yeah. Second question. True story. Second question, and then we're wrapping up. All right. Your answer to this question will actually facilitate 2 tickets to whoever's listening, to our 3 listeners of our first podcast. Whichever one of those 3 emails me first at marketing@litify.com, they're going to get 2 tickets to all 3 sessions of the Final Four, both of the Final Four games and the championship game in New Orleans, Loge club level seats, compliments of Jeffrey Glassman Injury Lawyers and Vista Consulting. Both of those teams are phenomenal. And they said, hey, we're going to support this, and we want to send somebody or 2 people to the Final Four. So in order for them to win those Final Four tickets, they got to email me, marketing@litify.com, and tell me who Terry Dohrmann picked to win the Final Four. Who's your pick?
I'm going with Providence. It's a long shot, but I'm going to go with Providence as a team. I have them in a couple pools, so go Providence.
Go Providence. All right. I think somebody would have to listen in order to have guessed that. So I don't think there'll be any winners by chance on this. They would have had to listen. Thank you, Terry. Very much appreciate you so much. Email us, marketing@litify.com. Say Providence. That's who's winning the Final Four, according to TD, the Prince, Terry Dohrmann. And you'll win those tickets, and we'll send you to NOLA to have some good times. Hey, there's absolutely no way we could top Terry Dohrmann in the first episode. And by the way, Terry, you are the best first guest that this podcast has ever had in its entire history. So I want to give you that esteem, man. You're incredible. But our next episode is going to be featuring Sam Pond of Pond Lahaki Giordano. I mean, you know Sam very well. I know Sam very well. This guy is a ball of energy. He is driven. He's incredible. He's a force of nature. And he understands what this drive, this internal drive is like, right? You've got it. I've got it. So many law firm leaders have it. They're just driven human beings, men, women alike. And he has this big time, right? And so we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about this element of drive in the life of the law firm leader, how to stay sane, how much therapy we need, and all the things necessary to make us healthy, to make us profitable, to make us have the most incredible teams ever, to play the game every day, to love our people, demand high performance. You don't want to miss Sam Pond talking about these things and other elements of his life and lessons learned, leading one of and founding one of the greatest, biggest, most successful law firms in America, Pond Lahaki Giordano. Hey, we're going to have so much fun on this podcast. Thank you very much to everyone for listening, and make sure you never miss an episode. Subscribe to Transforming the Culture of Law on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at litify.com/culture of law. We'll see you next time.